Good evening. I would like to call Budget and Appropriations to order at 6:50. Council Coates, I just ask if you would mind taking quick notes for me on this one. Quick minute.
Sure
Thank
thing.
you. This should be really short and easy. From the docket of February 16th, 2021, I entertain a motion to authorize payment of $10,020.80 for fiscal 20 invoice from Aggregate Industries to the Public Works Department. There is no transfer of funds needed.
Second.
Thank you, Todd. So as we've been doing all year, we're getting bills in later than we usually do as a result of the pandemic. This is actually for work that was done previous to June 30th, actually July 1st of last year. The invoices are from Aggregate Industries for liquid asphalt. It was actually received middle to the end of December, so we're just authorizing payment. There are no transfers. Any other
That's good.
questions?
None.
All right, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Thank you very much. And I would look for an adjournment at 6:51.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 6:51. Thank you.
You ready to go? I need Jim, Virginia.
You're all set.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I'd like to call this municipal council meeting to order at 7 PM. And I'd like to have a roll call vote, Mr. Withers, starting with Mr. Blair. Oops, you're muted, Steve. You're muted.
Okay, good. Ready?
You're the best, Barbara.
She does pretty well. Mr. Blair,
Here.
Ms. DeSimone,
Here.
Mr. Conti,
Present.
Mr. Waterman,
Here.
Vice President Jackson,
Here.
Mr. Delisio,
Here.
Mr. Kobus,
Here.
Ms. Dolan,
Here.
Ms. Reynolds,
Here.
Ms. Holmes,
Present.
and then we know President Cooper is not here. So there's 10 members present.
Thank you, Mr. Withers. I entertain a motion to approve the records of December 15th, 2020, January 5th, 2021, January 19th, 2021, and February 2nd, 2021. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Delisio. I entertain a motion to suspend the rules for this evening. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. The rules have been suspended for this evening's meeting. Mr. Withers, would you please read the notice of the first joint public hearing for this evening?
Yes, it's a public hearing relative to the joint public hearing with the Planning Board, February 16th, 2021, to address proposed amendments to Section 17-13 Water Resources Protection District of the Attleboro zoning ordinances.
Thank you, Mr. Withers. And we do have members of the planning board here with us this evening. I'm just waiting for them to jump on board. I see Mr. Uriat's here. Mr. Gittle. We're missing a few. Jim, do we have other participants here as well?
There are other participants.
Thank you.
Point of order. What? President Jackson,
Yes, Council
Um,
Kobus.
can we move this one? Can we change the order and move this one a little bit later? There's some technical difficulties with the city planner. So
Okay.
he's just working through getting connected. So
Gary's on.
oh,
now.
he's in now. Never mind. Thank you. Disregard.
Thank you, Council Kobus.
And we have a quorum for the planning board also.
Thank you, Mr. Denise. It's nice to see you, Mr. Lewis, as well. Do we have Mr. Irrigation with us as well?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. Who would like to begin?
Madam Chair,
Who's here to speak in favor?
Madam President?
Yes, Mr. Irrigation, it's nice to see you.
Hi, I see you, but I don't see myself, but that's okay. I'm sorry for the delay. I had a little technical difficulty getting on, so,
Absolutely no worries.
okay, so did you call the public hearing? Oh, there I am, okay.
Yes, we did. Yep.
Okay, so,
Is there anybody here to speak in favor? Yes, Mr. Irrigation.
thank you. Hello again. For the record, my name is Gary Irrigation. I'm the city's Director of Planning and Development. Hello, Madam Vice President, members of the council, and Planning Board Chairman and members of the Planning Board. So I'm here tonight to speak in favor of the proposed amendments to the Water Resource Protection District of the ordinance. I thought maybe before I dive into the specifics of the amendments, I thought maybe I could give a little background. I'll be brief on the WRPD. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Water Resource Protection District ordinance. Its purpose is to protect the city's water supply. Now, some communities have Groundwater aquifer protection. Some communities have surface water protection. The city of Attleboro draws its water from surface sources. So our water resource protection district, I just want to make clear, is not an aquifer protection, but rather a surface water protection ordinance. It was developed by the planning board and Wrpd. I'm going to say back in the very late 1970s, and it was ultimately adopted by the municipal council in December of 1981. There are two districts, two water resource protection districts, and these are overlay districts. These are not on the ground zoning districts, they're overlay districts. One is the Oars Pond Water Resource Protection District. That has an area of approximately 1,400 acres. It stretches from Manchester Reservoir to Oars Pond, just to the northwest of Route 95. And then there's the Bungie River, which is roughly about 1,000 acres. Each of those basins have a variety of zoning districts, and I think that's important, and I want to just bring out at this point because it has a connection with the ordinance, the way I recommended some of the amendments. So I think there's a misconception that both the Oars Pond Resource Protection District and the Bungie River are completely single residence, and that's not the case. In the Oars Pond, aside from a vast majority of the real estate being single residence, there's also general residence, planned highway business, which I was really surprised about, industrial, and the industrial business park. And for respect with the Bungie River, in addition to single residence, there's also general residence, general business, and industrial. As I mentioned earlier, these are overlay districts. The Bungie River is to the city's northeast, and the Oars Pond is along the city's western part of the city, again, stretching from Manchester Reservoir to Oars Pond, just north of 95. So why the proposed amendments? Why are we here? Why did I propose some amendments to the WRPD? As I understand it, there was initially discussions and some suggestions actually to repeal the WRPD in its entirety. And from what I gathered, I understood that the WRPD ordinance has become somewhat of an unnecessary permitting process, that it's a time-consuming process, and that it appears to be an inconvenience. So I spoke with a few councilors and I expressed my opposition, and I really didn't think repealing the WRPD was in the city's best interest. I explained that, in my humble opinion, at least looking at it from my point of view, I really don't think that it's a time-consuming process. I guess when you want something tomorrow and you don't get it tomorrow, I guess that's considered putting it out a bit. But when you think of the grand scheme of permitting processes, from the date one files a special permit application with the planning board, from the time you get your public hearing and the planning board typically renders its decision the night of the public hearing, you're talking about a window from about 2 to 3 weeks to get a public hearing and about 2 or 3 weeks to get a decision. So, of course, that's a subjective discussion. Some people think that could be cumbersome and unnecessary, but I didn't think that it is. But nonetheless, that's not my argument for preserving the Water Resource Protection District. The greater concern, if I may, is actually the protection of our city's water supply. I realize right now that we don't draw from the Bungie River, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't protect it. There's absolutely no evidence that I've seen or support from the city's water department that there's no need to protect the Oars Pond and Bungie River. There's absolutely no evidence that I've seen or support from the DEP or the EPA that there's no need to protect the city's water supply, in that being Oars Pond and the Bungie River. I wish to tell you that the Bungie River, along with the 10-Mile River and other rivers in Attleboro, along with waterways from Taunton and Fall River, all flow into Narragansett Bay. As I expressed these thoughts and considerations to some of my colleagues, then there was some discussion, well, maybe we could drop the Bungie River and maintain the integrity of Oars Pond. I still disagreed. Once again, I certainly understand that Bungie River is not necessarily right now, is not drawn from by the city as part of its water supply. But again, I would argue to the municipal council that that's not the only reason why, then therefore we should not protect it. There's a variety of reasons that we can get into with climate change and protecting our environment, why we need to. But it's a water supply, it's a river. And because they could be conceived as some inconvenience with permitting, I honestly don't think that there's any reason why we shouldn't maintain that protection of the Bungie River. So I prepared some revisions to the Wrpd that I think, respectfully, maintains the integrity of both overlay districts, yet affords some latitude that would align the Water Resource Protection District with a couple of other ordinances that the city has, namely the Local Wetlands Protection Ordinance and the Major Site Plan Review. So with that said, if it's okay with the council and the planning board, I'd just like to offer some comments and walk you through the amendments that I prepared. Again, I think what's before the municipal council and the planning board maintains the integrity of protecting Oars Pond and the Bungie River, but I've introduced some exemptions. And I think those exemptions are what I'd like to kind of focus on right now. And these exemptions align, in my humble opinion, with other ordinances that the planning board, the planning department, and the municipal council have partnered on in the past that have passed mustered with the council and you've adopted them. Those being the Local Wetlands Protection Ordinance and the Major Site Plan Review. There are 7 proposed exemptions. They're listed on the subsection 17-13.4. I could read them all, but I know they're before you, but to give you a little flavor of what they are, the first 2 exemptions would exempt single-family dwellings and 2-family dwellings from the special permit review process. Any activities associated with the maintenance or expansion of the city's water supply would be exempted from the special permit process. Emergency projects necessary for public health and safety. I think for practical purposes, I'm recommending that those be exempted from the special permit process. If you go on to section 17-13, 17-13.7, section C1. There's already a section for special permits. What are the items that I thought that we could provide a more thorough or a more hearty list is site plan requirements. So I took that section and I expanded it. So I ask you to draw your attention to subsection 17-13.7, subsection C1. I'll read it. It'll take a quick second if you may humor me. All applications for said special permits shall include but not be limited to: a site plan shall be stamped by a mass registered PLS stamp or PE stamp and containing sufficient information for the special permit granting authority to evaluate the special permit application, including a locus map, north arrow, property address, assessors plat and lot number, suitable scale, all proposed site improvements, existing and proposed topographic contours at a suitable interval, the lot's boundaries and locations of the WRPD boundary line, locations of any surface water, wetlands, and 100-year floodplain, impervious areas, drainage and layout and design of disposal facilities, and any additional information requested by the special permit granting authority that's deemed reasonable. A lot of that wasn't in the reg, and I thought for purposes of clarity, especially as engineers always want to know what they're walking into and what the expectations are, I thought that we could articulate a list of site plan requirements, and that's the list that I generated that I respectfully submit to the municipal council and the planning board. The other key part of this ordinance that I want to present to the council is subsection 17-13.8. That's completely new, and it talks about performance standards. So what's a counterbalance to the suggestion that we exempt single-family homes and 2-family homes? There still needs to be performance standards. So while the permit would now be an administrative process through the building inspector, all uses, whether by special permit or by right, would now have a list of performance standards. Again, 17-13.8. There's 8 performance standards. I could read them, but I don't want to take up too much time. I'm sure you've all read them. If you have any questions about any of those performance standards, but I think the key to the ordinance amendments is I respect the opinion of those who found the ordinance somewhat cumbersome, if you may. Gave a lot of thought about it, but I tempered that with my staunch professional opinion that we should not compromise the protection of our water supply or our rivers, if you may. So having said that, I thought I'd come up with some revisions that would continue to protect our water supply, again, the water resource districts, the Bungay River and Oars Pond, yet afford some discretion and exemptions for some development to be by right, but yet still having to be reviewed by, say, the building inspector under the performance standards. So again, I wanted to give you some background to the Wrpd, what precipitated my involvement, and why I think it's important that it's beyond the word important, imperative in this day and age that we not weaken our rules and regulations with respect to the protection of our water supply or just rivers and streams and lakes, and to offer some proposals that I think are fair and reasonable that would continue to maintain the integrity of our Wrpd overlay districts, but understanding perhaps a cumbersome process that I think the proposed amendments that I submit to you respectfully would mollify those who thought or may continue to think that the process is cumbersome. That ends my presentation. I'm more than happy to try to answer any of the questions that councilors may have or the planning board members.
Thank you, Mr. Irrigation. With Councilor Kobus.
Thank you. And thank you, Gary. First and foremost, thank you for all of your work on this. I very much appreciate the hard work that went into this and in trying to address the original intent of what we're trying to do. 3 quick questions. One, with regard to a new development, so I understand there's the exemption for single family and 2-family homes. But if there's an entirely new development going in, what's the impact to that? I assume the construction is on individual plots, and that would just go through the regular inspection process. But can you talk a little bit about sort of if an entire development is going in, what the impact is to that?
Well, I'm not going to comment on the impact, but I think your question is more, what's the process?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. So as I said, this would only exempt single family and 2-family development or construction. There are a wide variety of other developments that are regulated by special permit. Those aren't exempted. Those are currently by special permit as our single family and as our 2-family. And the only thing that this amendment would do is exempt a single family and 2-family. All other developments, particularly multifamilies, those would still, if anything like that were to be proposed in the Wrpd, would still be by special permit.
Okay. But for instance, like a cul-de-sac that would of single family homes,
the units would
what
not
would
be regulated, but the stormwater management system would still fall under the stormwater management order. I'm sorry, the planning board's subdivision regulations. So
Perfect.
the stormwater would still be reviewed, regulated, and ultimately permitted by the planning board and or the conservation commission depending on the complexion of the proposal.
Perfect. And then the other question was, is the WRPD unique to Attleboro, or are there similar ordinances throughout Massachusetts at all that you're aware of?
Yeah, there are similar ordinances and bylaws throughout the Commonwealth. And like I said, some of them are aquifer protection, some are surface water protection. Ours happens to be surface water because we draw our water supply from a surface water supply, not from a groundwater aquifer. But there are a wide range of similar ordinances and bylaws throughout the Commonwealth.
Perfect. And then the last question is, my understanding is the Bungay River could potentially be a water source at some point in the city of Attleboro. Is that your understanding as well?
Well, again, I'm not qualified to answer that question. What I do know is that it used to be, and the wells were decommissioned several years ago. But notwithstanding, that's why I said, is despite the fact that it is not, and I want to be completely transparent with the municipal council and the planning board, and I know you know this anyway, but the fact that the Bungay River right now, as far as I know, and because the wells have been decommissioned, is not part of the city's water supply. I submit to the council and to the planning board that simply because that is not part of the city's water supply doesn't mean that it shouldn't be afforded protection, even if it never becomes part of the city's water supply again. But more so, would it ever become a part of the city's water supply? Could it be recommissioned? I really don't know. I think that's a question that we need to ask the water superintendent, maybe, of course, talk with DEP. But I'm certainly not in a position right now to answer that question in the affirmative. In fact, I'd rather defer it and maybe get back to you at another time, but I certainly cannot say yes at this point.
And I do see that the water superintendent is on, so maybe she can
Oh,
talk
excellent.
to that. So thank you again, Gary. That answers my questions, and thanks again for your work here.
Thank you.
Counselor Reynolds. You're muted. Sarah, you're muted.
I'm sorry about that. So, Gary, I just have one question. First of all, I appreciate the time that you spent on this, and as you know, I was behind this coming forward at this time, and between COVID and everything else, and this finally coming forward, I appreciate it. I have one question. If there are special permits that were already out for, that have been permitted, they were called special at the time, and they were for single family or 2-family homes, and they now expire, going maybe 3 months from now, they expire, then those persons would be under this new ruling. They don't have to come back in under a special permit. They come in under this now.
So I want to understand. So you're saying that they received a special permit, but they haven't yet constructed the home. Is that your question? And now would they be required to? Is that your question?
They wouldn't be required to come back. They wouldn't be required to extend those special permits because this is here now.
So if you've received a special permit and built your home, you're all set.
Or it's not built. It's not built yet.
That's what I want to know. So your question is if it's not yet built. Correct. So from the effective date of the ordinance, let's say that permit lapses. Now that the municipal council, I respectfully ask if you do amend the ordinance and adopt the exemptions. That is correct. They would not have to come back for a special permit. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Gary.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the council? Councilor Kobus?
Sorry, one more, and Gary, I apologize that we haven't talked about this previously, but do you have a suggestion for the effective date of this? From
I didn't really think about it. My presumption is gonna be that you're not gonna render a decision tonight. So even if you close the public hearing, can I just think about it and get back to the municipal council with the recommendation?
Absolutely.
I want to weigh the pros and cons of out of fairness to Councilor Reynolds' question, the effective date, what implications that would have. Please let me reassure you that the intent of this is not to capture anything if they haven't been exercised yet. So if logically the effective date is the date if the effective date of the ordinance is when you adopt it, then so be it. I just want to make sure that that's the most lenient of the options. So that's why I just want to think about it first. So I know sometimes we'll ask the council, and there's going to be one coming up pretty soon, that should the municipal council vote to approve an upcoming ordinance, that you please have the effective date with the 90-day period extended out. I just want to make sure that the advice I give you shuts that off so that it doesn't have a reach to permits, Sarah, that have been granted and therefore require them to come back. So with that said, please give me a day or two. I'll get back to Councilor Cobus and he could pass out my recommendation.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Counselor Reynolds?
okay, I'm just going to go back, Gary, and make sure I have this right in my head. So you are looking to make this effective so that it doesn't necessarily, negatively affect what's already out there, is what you're
Correct.
saying to me.
Correct.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Right. So again, to
So as
answer your
soon as,
question, if the permit was granted,
mhm,
it has not been exercised yet,
mhm.
and this ordinance takes effect, will that person, that applicant that received that permit, would they be required to come back? My answer to that is no.
Okay, thank you, Gary.
Okay.
Any members of the planning board have any questions for Mr. Irrigation? No, any other counselors have any questions? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Irrigation, for attending this evening.
My pleasure.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor? Do we have anyone else here to speak in favor this evening?
I think,
Courtney was raising her hand.
Okay. Miss One-Shell. I don't see her.
I do.
I see her, but I can't hear her, but she's not muted.
Oh, there she is. Hi, Courtney.
Courtney, we can't hear you. Courtney, did you turn your audio on?
Is this better?
There you go.
Yes, much better.
Okay, good. I had a heck of a time getting on tonight. Apologies.
I did too, Courtney.
Oh, it wasn't just me.
Yeah.
I came in the middle of Gary's presentation, and I did overhear the question from one of the counselors regarding the Bungay River.
Mhm.
We did in the past have a well field out on the Bungay River. It has been decommissioned in either the 80s or the 90s. The equipment has been removed. The well is filled in. However, the water rights are still there should we ever need it. So there is the potential that we could actually pull from the Bungay River and either bring it to one of the plants or to one of the reservoirs and into the rest of the system. So there's the answer for that. The other reason I'm in support of this is, there's issues with water quality out in the system. And I came to council and spoke about the loan order for Wading River a couple weeks ago, and I realized we're not in the same watershed. However, if we protect Oars Pond and we protect the Bungay, things like this are less likely to happen in the watershed for the larger plant.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. One-Shell? No questions, planning board? Any counselors? Thank you very much, Superintendent One-Shell.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Anyone here to speak in opposition? How about anyone here to speak in neither for nor against? Neither for nor against this evening. Well, thank you both so much for coming. We appreciate your presence with us.
Pleasure, thank you.
There's a person that might want to speak on this.
Oh.
They just raised their hand in the.
Okay, great. Want to bring them forward? Thank you, Jim.
Hello. My name is
Hello.
Paulette Rio, and I really want to extend my thank you to Gary Irrigation for taking the time and putting the efforts into making these changes. I just really want to thank you. I know it's It's been a lot of work getting this together, and I do very much appreciate it. I happen to be in the Bungay River District, and I can't, again, express my thanks enough.
Paulette, thank you so much. Would you mind just stating your address just for the record, please? Paulette?
Sure. 1 Lockmont Drive in North Attleboro, Mass.
Thank you. Thank you, Paulette.
Thank you, guys.
Is there anybody else here to speak neither for nor against? Neither for nor against? With that, thank you very much again. I will thank you both again. Mr. Denese?
Yes.
Board see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
No.
Thank you very much. And I believe this was in, Ms. Counselor Holmes, this is in your,
It's in zoning.
thank you, Counselor Cobus, thank you very much. Do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
With that, we'll declare this public hearing closed.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night. Good night. Thank you. And Mr. Withers?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Public hearing
Yes.
relative to
Go ahead.
proposed amendments to section 16-10 through 16-14 of the revised ordinances of the city of Attleboro, water main connections and service.
Do we have anybody here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak in favor? Superintendent Wunschel. You're muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Again, sorry, technical difficulties tonight. So we originally spoke about the ordinances and the changes needed back in May. It was the beginning of Zoom and public meetings, so it was a little rough. Tonight will go a little bit better. A few years ago, when my predecessor retired, one of the first things I wanted to look at, even a few years back, was the fees that the water department is charging. As I spoke about back in May, the fees that we charge for many of our services do not cover the actual cost of the services to the water department. And what ends up happening is these fees that are for these services that are being provided for a single business or a single resident are getting absorbed by the entire breadth of the rate payer. So in doing that, I also looked through the entire ordinance, and some of these changes are just language changes and cleaning up some of the language. And I won't go through them here unless anybody has any questions. I'll just go through the fees. So the reasoning for this, again, is there's a large sum of money that is being absorbed by the ratepayer. Because again, if we can't charge the correct amount for a service, it has to come from somewhere. So in looking at these, the year that I used for comparison for the loss of revenue, if you look at it one way, or if you look at it another way, what's being absorbed by the ratepayer, the year I looked at was calendar year 2019. The reason I looked at calendar year 2019 is because it was the last full construction year, the last year that things ran completely normal before COVID. So it's the most typical year. Construction does go up and down. So the most recent year for that would be the most relevant. And for calendar year 2019, the gap in the fee structure that was being absorbed by the ratepayer is estimated at just under $105,000. It's a substantial amount of money. It's about 1.5% of this year's operating budget. It's for our average ratepayer. Our average ratepayer is absorbing $10 a year, which doesn't sound like a lot, except for two things. First of all, they're paying $10 for services that they're not receiving. And second of all, if you look at individual customers, as we like to look at them, it depends on what type of customer they are. If you look at industrials, our average industrial user is absorbing $171 a year because these fees are not set high enough. That's what your average is absorbing on the water rate. The highest of those industrials is absorbing almost $1,000 a year. If you look at our commercial users, our average commercial, it's about $25 a year. Our largest commercial user is absorbing about $600. And again, they're paying into these fees and they're not receiving the services. I also looked at a couple municipal departments. The school department is, again, on their water rate, they're absorbing just under $1,400 a year. If you look at our regular normal public works department, our highest water user outside of the water department, and we don't pay for water because we're the ones producing it, that would be the rec department. And if the fee structure was set different and we were charging what we should to be able to cover our costs, the rec department would not be paying the extra $860 in their water bill per year. So it's a substantial amount of money. I also looked at the wastewater department because they pay a direct bill to us. And again, it's over $260 a year that they're absorbing because these fees, the fee structure just isn't set the way it should be. So the fees that I looked at, actually I went through every single one of them. Again, some of them were fine. Some of this, when you look at this big long memo that I sent down, some of it's just language changes to clear things up. But the ones that I looked at were substantial was the water main extension, was what I started with. A brand new water main extension, we currently charge $495. A water main extension, when the application comes in, and actually I'll cover service here too. When these applications come in, I review them, a certified distribution operator reviews them. So there's our time. There's time of the office. And then you get into actual construction after approval. Construction includes multiple inspections. It includes multiple visits by certified operators. It includes the operators going out to sample. Lab is separate. It includes flushing water. It includes communications with the contractor. $495 does not even near cut the cost for this. The proposed, and again, that would be for service too. Water main extensions, a cost that made more sense that would actually cover the department's costs for this service is $2,000 per main extension plus $4 per linear foot. And what that actually translates into, again, I looked back at 2019, the average main extension, this isn't a huge amount of money for a contractor. The average main extension, had we used these permit fees in 2019, would have been $4,300. The services are a little bit different. Again, it goes through all the same work within the department, all the same approvals, all the same inspections. And again, there we're only charging $300. It does not cover cost. The proposed fee is $1,000 per inch of diameter for the service. That would cover our costs for a basic 1-inch service, which is the average of what's out there. In addition to both of those, I'm proposing a 25% capital fee. And what this is for is, once a water main is installed, it's accepted by the city. The water department owns that water main for the life of the water main. We flush it, we maintain it. If there's a water break out there, if we need to exercise or repair valves, all that belongs to us. For a new service, again, once the service is in, the customer owns from the curb stop into the house. We own from the main to the curb stop, including the stop. So it basically gives us some assurance that we're going to be able to afford to take care of these mains and services once they're installed. There is a new permit fee that has actually come up in the last couple of years, and it's for those contractors, for those permits that require an application on a road controlled by Mass DOT. When a contractor installs a service on or a main on a Mass DOT controlled road, they used to be able to apply to DOT themselves. They can no longer do that. They submit information to me. And again, I review it, same process. It would be me and a distribution certified operator reviewing this. I have to write a letter to DOT. I actually have to submit the application to DOT. And any issues and any requests for more information from either side, from either the contractor or the state, has to come through my office. So there's an additional $300 charge proposed on that. And that's basically to cover my time and the additional time of the primary certified operator for the distribution system. So that's mains and services. When we get into, bear with me, I'm sorry. There's section 16-12, 16-11.2. That one is a change, and it's just to reflect the new rate. When the new rate went through, that particular section was not changed, and that's the minimum charge for 500 cubic feet of water per quarter. Another proposed change is right now for working without a permit. We only charge $200 if we catch someone working without a permit. It's not even the cost of a permit. It's not even anywhere near the cost of a permit. So the proposal is to basically take the fine, and it would be double the cost of the permit that should have been applied for and approved for. This doesn't happen very often. The reason for the huge price tag there is as a deterrent, because it does happen. When we get to 16-12.3, this one also doesn't come up very often, and it's operation of valves out in the system by water department staff. This would be someone that's doing work on private land that's requiring a shutdown of the water main. Right now, we don't charge for this. The proposed fee is $250, and it would cover the cost of the staff to be able to go out and operate the valves and communicate with the contractor. It's basically to cover time. 16-12.4 is going to be for final readings. Final reading is when someone sells a house, the meter staff will go in, they inspect the shutoff, they inspect the meter, they inspect the service coming into the house. And again, the $25 is just we currently charge $20. The $5 increase is just to cover the cost to the office and to the meter division for time. Lost the number, 16-12.5E. That's a new fee. And this is for frozen services. If we have a resident or a business where the service freezes, and we do have some of the older neighborhoods, the services weren't laid deep enough, so they do freeze on really, really cold winters. Our staff will go out free of charge, unfreeze the service, or perform a property-to-property connection to be able to get them temporary water while they unfreeze their service. In my good heart, I would never charge for that. I wouldn't charge the second time we went out. In the past, we have had certain customers, because of their frozen service, that have been connected house to house. with a neighbor. We had one resident several years ago, that really, really cold winter, I believe it was 16 into 17. We had a crew out there almost every night, unfreezing hoses, on call, and they go out and the department's paying overtime to cover this for someone that just can't leave the hose running. So this one, again, it's more of a deterrent. It's not something that I would just charge first time out or even second or third. 16-12.11. This is for turn on and shut off water. Again, right now we charge $20. It really doesn't cover the time of the office and meter division staff or distribution staff if they're the ones that go out. So it's just a $5 increase. 16-12.12C has an increase from $3 to $11. And this is for testing of meters. When we have a resident or a business, if it's a smaller meter, that has a high bill complaint and they're questioning the accuracy of the water meter, we do offer testing. We charge $3 and it takes at least an hour to test the meter itself. This doesn't include the time to be able to go out, take the meter out of service, bring it back to the department, test it, and then bring it back, or to install a new meter in its place. The reason this $11 isn't higher is because I believe Councilor Conti asked this last time, was, are there any of these fees that are regulated? And yes, this one is. We can only, per state regs, charge $11 for the service. Section 1612.25, irrigation systems, and Section A. Right now, I'm proposing a $50 permit fee for irrigation meters. This would include the cost of application to the water department and inspection of the irrigation meter. These are installed by plumbers. These meters do not belong to us. Right now, we're not charging. And the reason a resident or a business would request an irrigation meter is to basically get a rebate off of their sewer. So anything that goes through that irrigation meter is not charged towards their sewer bill. And again, that's just to cover paperwork and inspection and labor. And Section D in the same, number D, letter D, in the same section, again, it's the installing or failing to let us know about an irrigation meter or a change in plumbing, and it's $100, and that would be a fine, and that just follows the double the permit fee. 1612.26. This gets into a new proposed fee. Currently, when a contractor or a business uses one of the fire hydrants out in the system, they are required by ordinance to have a hydrant setup. A hydrant setup, in a nutshell, consists of a shutoff valve, a water meter, and a backflow prevention device. In the past, we've had contractors show up without them. We've had to shut down work. We've actually had to shut down work for other departments because of this, because of contractors showing up without this setup. We have lent our own. We have 2 on site. Now we have 4 because we were lending them out so much that we didn't have them for ourselves when we needed them. So the proposed fee for these, it would guarantee that the contractor or another city department would have this setup available to them. And the fee structure for this is, it would be $300 per week or $1,000 per month, with a $1,500 deposit, which whoever was using this setup would get the deposit returned when they returned the setup in good condition. The reason for the $1,500 and the reason for the rental fee is a setup costs us $1,600 to $1,700. They don't last forever. And the $1,500 would basically cover if someone didn't return this thing, we could buy a new one. And the rental fee basically would cover wear and tear on the device, because again, these are out in construction sites and that sort of thing. And yes, it is very, very necessary that these setups are on hydrants when they're operational and they're being used for dust control or things like that, because a hydrant is, without a backflow device, it is a direct cross connection to our distribution system. So this one falls into, it's also a drinking water safety issue if these setups are not available. 1612.28 is a missed appointment fee. This is new. This is nothing I'd ever charge a resident. We do have realtors that schedule for the meter crew and don't show up. We have contractors that schedule for the distribution crew and they don't show up. And some of this is repeated. And again, as soon as, we have a meter or a distribution crew member off the meter or the distribution crew, there's other things that have to be rescheduled because they're not there. So this would ensure more timeliness with appointments. 16-12.29, it's a hydrant flow test fee. This is new to the ordinance, but it's not new to the department. Currently, for a hydrant flow test, the department charges $50. This is for water department staff to go out and operate the hydrant. It covers paperwork through the office. It also covers lost water, because we don't charge for water during a flow test, because there's not a way to meter it without restricting the hydrant flow, which defeats the purpose of the flow test. It would also cover when we do have flow tests. They tend to disrupt a large part of the system. You get a lot of flow going through the hydrant very, very fast. So the office and the control room tend to, at least for a day or two, sometimes get tied up with phone calls, water complaints, that sort of thing. So it's to handle time away from other things that they're doing. Section 16-13.6, there is one proposed fee increase in here, and that's the cross-connection survey fee. Cross-connection surveys, initial surveys, and the new facilities, changes in plumbing, any surveys that have failed, those are done in-house by water department staff. Everyone else in the city, every other non-residential, is on a 5-year cycle. And again, we do these, and it's to be able to keep the drinking water in the city safe. This is when we go out and look for cross connections between potable and non-potable water. So our current estimate for surveys for next year is $75.58 a piece. Right now, we're only charging $50 per ordinance. So every time we go out and we survey, or we have our contractor survey a facility, the ratepayer is covering not just that $25.58 gap, they're also covering time of our office, of me, or of our senior service inspector to coordinate with the contractor and with the businesses who are surveying. The last section that has a fee increase would be section 1614. And looking at the ordinance, 1614, I think kind of fell off everybody's radar for a long time. And it's going to do with private hydrants and sprinklers. And basically, they're very undercharged. Right now, we're charging, it's a $200 permit. And this would basically set up the fee structure for private hydrants and sprinklers the same way that the fee structure is proposed for water main extensions and new water services. Except with the exception of no capital fee, because these particular items will not belong to us once the work is completed. So That's the bulk of the fee increases. I don't think I missed anybody. But one thing I did want to mention, and I know it came up in May, is a possible deterrent to construction. And again, I really truly believe this is not a deterrent to construction. It's not meant to be. Again, it's meant to ease some burden from the ratepayer. When you're looking, again, that main extension that may have 25 houses on it, they're looking at an increase in the main extension of under $4,000 for a permit for your average one. For your water service, again, we're looking at under $1,000 a piece. Again, when they're building houses in these new subdivisions, an extra $1,000 per house, when the houses are selling on average for the new constructions for $575,000 to $600,000 in Attleboro right now, this can be absorbed by the person buying the house instead of the average ratepayer that's already here, or the average business owner that has already paid their dues to be here. So again, it's not to deter development. And I really and truly think it won't. So I think that's it. Again, I included with the packets that I sent down, what we're charging now for these particular services compared to proposed. And I also did include, again, the comparison with other cities and towns. And when I look at other cities and towns, we're very comparable on the ones that I think are reasonable, that I know to be reasonable. I look at some of these high fees in other towns, and those types of permit fees, those are there to deter construction. These are not. And I know the question came up last time, and I believe it was Councilor Delicio, but I'm not 100% sure on what this could possibly do to the rate. If this was absorbed back out of the rate, the estimate is about 9 cents per billing unit. So instead of the 506, it could be 497. So there's a chunk of it right there. Again, the rate, when I propose my budget, the rate goes through the mayor's office and through the budget admin for them to figure out how to make everything mesh and everything fit. Daily operating budget and future needs, that's more my department. I can tell you retained earnings the last few years have been used to balance the budget of the following year. So, you know, there are projects out there that we use retained earnings for. We have 4 vehicles and another proposed vehicle that came out of retained earnings. Franklin Street was done pure retained earnings. Our water meter supplies for the meter upgrade program, that comes from retained earnings from both water and wastewater. Part of the engineering for the Deanville water main project that's upcoming came from retained earnings. We've used it to pay our electric bill when the rate went up unexpectedly. We've purchased a high lift pump for Wading River. And there's a few projects that are actually in request right now. One of those is the high lift for West Street, excuse me. Another replacement truck, because we now have 4 parked that cannot pass inspection. And there's another one that will be coming down tonight if you haven't seen it yet, and that's security upgrades to the SCADA system. And all these types of things come out of retained earnings. And I can tell you that last year there were a couple projects that really needed to get done, and they did not because the retained earnings was not healthy enough. So again, the proposed fees, they don't come directly to us, but they will end up in retained earnings the following year. So again, that's up to the mayor's office and it's up to the budget office whether or not that would be a reduction in the rate or a less of an increase if it fell that way, or if it would be left to keep the retained earnings healthier and get some of these outstanding projects done. And I'm sorry I talked a lot tonight.
Thank you, Courtney. Does anyone have any questions for Superintendent One-Shell? Council Blair?
Courtney, when a house comes on, the average water bill is what? And what kind of revenue do you get from a 20, 30 lot subdivision?
It depends. I actually don't have the average residential. Your average water user citywide, the average bill is $533 per year. They tend to be a little bit lower if they are residential than if they're a business or a commercial, which would make sense. The point of the water rate itself, again, is not to cover fees for new things. It's the rate is meant to cover our daily operation at the water department. So it would cover our chemicals, our personnel, maintenance of that customer's side of the water service, partial maintenance of the main in the street that's already existing in there.
You're missing my point, Courtney.
Mm.
If you get a subdivision that comes on, and we've got several in town, probably more than several, you know better than I do.
Mhm.
They're putting in 30 homes, 25 homes in their plans. That's got to be an increase in revenue for the water department. Am I right, wrong?
It is and it's not, because again, the rate structure is set up basically to take care of our costs. So the more people that move in, the more water we're making. You have things like personnel and things like that that stay the same, but every time we have a new user, chemical costs, power, that sort of thing goes up.
If 30 homes got built or 60 homes get built, you need more personnel to handle those 60 homes?
No, I just said personnel stays the same.
Okay, so you've got to have a net increase in profit.
Yeah, I'd imagine there probably is.
Oh, yeah, I guess there is. So you didn't take this into consideration then in lowering your cost of operation by increasing the rates?
No.
Thank you.
Councilor Dolan, please.
Thank you. So when you talk about retained earnings and projects that you could use, so when I went back on the capital improvements, so you could have used, did you not have enough retained earnings regarding the Wading River pilot back then? You didn't have enough to cover it then?
No, we didn't. That project, I originally added that to the CIP for 2021 to 2025. At that point, I believe the cost on it at that point was to be determined. I later met with the mayor's office, budget, the auditor, and the city treasurer in January. And when we submit the CIP, it's submitted to council, and then we have this meeting uptown internally every year, and it's a discussion of which projects are necessary to move forward. Last January, and not last month, last January 2020, this was one of the projects that was discussed, was the Wading River pilot and the need for it.
Right.
By January, I did have a price. The retained earnings, at that point, actually in January, it was a move it forward, and then COVID hit. And so it was delayed because of that. And then it hit the end of the year, and I had a discussion with the mayor and with Jeremy of, if I can only move one single project forward this year, it needs to be this Wading River pilot. The answer was that we could not afford it because the retained earnings at that point needed to be used to balance the FY21 budget. And in the meantime, you know, later on in the fall, PFAS sampling started, and I think we all know the rest from there. This project cannot wait anymore. But we would have had a decent start even with just the THM pilot going had it been able to be funded last year.
And can I just ask a follow-up, please?
Yes, you may. Go ahead.
Thank you. So, and when a new development comes in, when you get the 30 houses or so, you do, like Councilor Blair said, you do have new ratepayers, but correct me if I'm wrong, when you do have a new development, you have new service fees. You have the connection, the new service connections, and whatever else they require,
Yes.
which are all fees that we're losing money on.
Yes,
Is that
they
correct?
are. Well, and again, like I said earlier too, once that new subdivision is in, sure, our cost to make water and actually produce the plant goes down. And I'm sorry, Councilor Blair, I should have, I'm getting what you were getting at. The actual cost to produce water goes down because again, personnel and things like that stay constant. However, we have a new water main and a couple dozen new services to care for. So it should be a break even, but it's not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Council Waterman, do you have a question for Superintendent Winchell?
Yes, I do. Superintendent Winchell, you may have mentioned this, but I don't recall. How long ago do you think the last comprehensive review of all these various costs was? And since that time, has there been piecemeal increases or can you just deal with it? Yeah, go ahead.
Other than the water rate, the only one that has been increased since I've been there, and again, I took over as assistant superintendent in 2010. The only one that had already been increased was the backflow surveys, and I don't remember the original amount at that time, but before that, everything predates me starting at the department. So we're looking at these are early 2000s or older.
Early 2000s. Was there ever a time in your time anyways with the water department where the ratepayers were not partially subsidizing the true cost?
Since 2010, I would say no.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilor DeSimone.
Thank you, President Jackson. Superintendent Winchell, just one question, and forgive me, you might have mentioned this back in the spring, I don't remember. But keeping it simple, compared to surrounding and or comparable cities and towns, where do our rates fall in? Like how much lower, how much higher, where are we in the competitive scheme of things?
Are you looking at rates or fees?
Oh, fees, I'm sorry, yes, thank you.
Oh, that's okay. I have both.
Okay.
Fees, again, I looked at interconnected neighbors. I also looked at other cities in Bristol County. Right now, I'll give you some examples. Our typical main extension is 8 inches. Okay, and again, 2019, were we charging these fees that year? Again, I said our average cost for a water main, our average permit charged for a water main extension would be $4,300. Right now it's $495. If you look at Norton, what they would charge for the same water main, $50,000. If you look at Seekonk for the same main, $72,000. If you look Mansfield, I don't think Mansfield had it listed, bear with me. Mansfield does not have it listing. North Attleboro, new 8-inch main, $8,000. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's a service. 8-inch main up to 150 feet, they charge $1,000. Anything up to 500 feet, they charge $5,000. Anything up to 1,000 feet, they're charging $10,000. And then anything over 1,000 feet for that same main, $10,000 plus $1 a foot. New Bedford, $450 plus $4 per foot. Proposed is very, very comparable to New Bedford. Fall River doesn't have it listed. And Taunton is for that same 8-inch main, $10,000, and then they charge a $5,200 capital improvement fee. So their capital fee that they already use is over 50%. And that was actually the ones I looked at. And the way I chose those towns, again, they're the other cities in Bristol County, they're interconnected departments, and the last one is Mansfield. And the reason I picked Mansfield is because we actually share customers with them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Council Holmes, please.
Thank you. That actually might be helpful for us to have. Are you able to have Virginia scan that to us, Courtney?
I believe I sent it with the memo. If I didn't, I can send it again.
Okay, I can look back then. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Superintendent Wunschel? Is there anybody else here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak in favor? Anyone here to speak against? Anyone here to speak against? Anyone here to speak neither for nor against this evening? Anyone here to speak neither for nor against? With that, Council Holmes, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
Okay, we'll declare that public hearing closed. Thank you very much for your time again this evening, Superintendent Wunschel.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too, thank you. Mr. Withers, when you're ready, you're going to unmute, please.
So the next public hearing is relative to the proposed amendment to section 16-15.11 through 16-15.15, 16-16.2, 16-18.9 of the revised ordinance of the City of Attleboro, Building and Sewers, and Connections and Wastewater Permit Application Process and Fees.
Thank you, Mr. Withers, and I believe Mr. Johnson is here with us this evening. I see his name.
Hello.
Hi, Bill. This is Kate Jackson. Hi, Bill. This is Kate Jackson. And you're here to speak in favor. You're muted. Hey, Bill, you're muted. I know that Bill is here.
Okay. How about now? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right. Yes, my name's William Johnson. Here to represent the wastewater treatment facility. I'd like to speak in favor of the proposed amendments concerning building, sewers, connections, and wastewater permit application process and fees. I'll go over them sequentially the way Courtney did. The same reasons. We looked at what our fee structure was versus the cost in man hours that it takes to actually perform the work involved with it. And we came to the same conclusions that Courtney did, that what we're charging doesn't cost, isn't paying for the labor costs for it. So I'll start out with residential and commercial sewer service connection, 16-15.6B. Our current fee of $300 does not cover the cost associated with time spent by staff in meetings with contractors, site visits, record requests, plan reviews, tie sheet drawings, and inspection of the sewer connection. In addition, multi-units, condominiums, and commercial buildings require much more time than a single-family residence due to the more complex nature of the sewer connections involved. And in this type of construction, therefore, we propose an increase in the permit fee to $500 for single-family residential permits and to $650 for multi-units, condominiums, and commercial permits. And once again, that's because of the complexity involved with the multi-units in commercial. Our next section is industrial sewer service connection. Once again, 16-15.6B. Our current fee of $325 doesn't cover the cost associated with the time spent by staff, meeting with contractors, site visits, record requests, plan reviews, and tie sheet drawings, and inspection of the sewer connection. In addition, industrial building requires more review and oversight due to the more complex nature of the sewer connections involved with this type of construction. Therefore, we propose an increase in the permit fee to $650 for an industrial sewer connection permit. The next section would be commercial grease trap sewer service connection, again, 16-15.6B. Our current fee of $325 does not cover the cost associated with time spent by staff in meetings with contractors, site visits, record requests, plan reviews, tie sheet drawings, inspection of the grease trap connection. In addition, commercial grease traps require more review and oversight due to the more complex nature of the sewer connections involved with this type of construction. Currently, the city ordinance does not specifically call out these fees, but we feel that this is the appropriate place to add them. Therefore, we propose a permit fee of $650 for commercial grease trap permits and adding language to the city ordinance to support this fee. The next fee increase would be for sewer service connection alteration, repair, or replacement. Currently, the department charges $300 for an alteration, repair, or replacement of a residential or commercial sewer, and $325 for an alteration, repair, or replacement of industrial sewer connections based on the current ordinance. We don't intend to increase these fees, but due to the fact they're not specifically called out in the ordinance, we feel that the additional language is needed to support the current fees. The next one would be commercial grease trap alteration, repair, and replacement. Once again, 16-15.6B. Currently, the department does not charge for alteration, repair, or replacement of commercial grease traps based on city ordinance. We propose a fee of $300 and that additional language be added to the city ordinance to support the fee. Okay, that's all of the sections concerning sewer fees. The next one would be fines. Section 16-15.6M. The current fine for installing or repairing a sewer connection extension without a permit is $50 for the first offense and $100 for any subsequent offense. And it's $50 if any person is found to be installing or repairing a sewer connection or extension without a permit on a job site. We propose a fine increase to help deter contractors from working without the proper permits. Therefore, we propose an increase to $100 for the first offense and $200 for any subsequent offense, and $100 if a person is found to be installing, repairing a sewer connection or extension without a permit at a job site. The next section would be our industrial discharge permit. This is section 16-15.11.2D. Under the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, general pretreatment regulations for existing and new sources of pollution mandates the industrial pretreatment program, 40 CFR 403, and requires permitting and oversight of industrial discharges to the public-owned treatment works. One of the guidelines set forth by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency is a fee-based program that supports the cost associated in running the pretreatment program. Our current industrial user permit fee is $2,200, City Ordinance 16-15.11.2. This does not cover the cost associated with time spent by staff in creating and maintaining the permit, inspections of the facility, sampling, and compliancy enforcement, or the salaries of the pretreatment staff. Therefore, we propose an increase in the permit fee to $10,000 renewable every 5 years. The next section is all language changes, and these were all basically just to clean up the language that was in there, because actually, no, I skipped a section. Our industrial discharge permit closed loop, that's 16-15.11.2D, excuse me. The US EPA General pretreatment regulations for existing and new sources of pollution mandate the industrial pretreatment program and requires permitting and oversight of industrial discharges to the publicly owned treatment works. One of the guidelines set forth by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency is a fee-based program that supports the cost associated with running the pretreatment program. Closed-loop industrial discharges do not directly discharge to the publicly owned treatment works, but they still require oversight and monitoring by the tree treatment staff. The current industrial user permit fee is $1,000. This does not cover the cost associated with time spent by staff in creating and maintaining the permit, inspections of the facility, sampling, and compliance enforcement, or the salaries of the pretreatment staff. Therefore, we propose an increase in the permit fee to $2,000, also renewable every 5 years. Okay, the next three were all just language changes to clarify some sections. I'll pass by those. Section 16-16-2, sewer main extension. Our current fee of $495 does not cover the cost associated with time spent by staff, meeting with contractors, site visits, record requests, plan reviews, tie sheet drawings, and inspection of the sewer main extension. In addition, sewer main extensions required extensive pressure testing and inspection when compared to normal residential sewer inspections. This combined with multiple site visits, oversight due to the more complex nature of a sewer main extension warrant a fee increase. Therefore, we propose increasing the fee to $1,000 for the initial permit and an additional fee of $4 per linear foot of sewer main extension installed. We also propose a 25% maintenance fee based on the total cost of the permit. This capital cost fee will help the department recoup some of the future expenses involved in maintaining the new sewer main. And this is like the water main extension. Once we own this, it's ours forever and we have to take care of it. So this will help offset some of the costs. The next section is commercial user permit 16-18.9. A commercial user currently includes commercial users that contribute fats, oils, and greases to the sewer collection system. The current lifetime fee of $100 for a commercial user discharge permit doesn't cover the cost associated with the time spent by staff creating and maintaining the permit, inspections of the facility, sampling, and compliance enforcement, or the salaries of the pretreatment staff. Also, due to lack of penalties in the ordinance for non-compliance with commercial discharge permit, the pretreatment staff has difficulties enforcing U.S. Environmental Protection Agency guidelines for fog. Therefore, we propose ending the lifetime permit and increasing the permit fee to $250 renewable every 2 years. And this would give us a means of some type of enforcement where we wouldn't have to, if someone's a constant violator, we could possibly withhold renewing their permit. So it would give us some recourse where we have none right now if someone's not complying with our current rules. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have. If you have any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Johnson? Any questions from any counselors?
Kate?
Counselor Dolan. I see you.
Hey. The fog falls under the IPP program, right? And because I look at my notes and it says the IPP program is supposed to be self-funded. And from the last time Mr. Hayes was here, he said that there isn't enough collected to self-fund the IPP program. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Our industrial pretreatment office's assistant maintains the fog program. And with the increases that we're asking for, the current cost of maintaining one permit per year is estimated at $11,177. That's just for the sampling and everything else we do to maintain a permit. We're not gonna ever be able to fully fund the industrial waste program based on fees. We don't have enough industry in Attleboro. but we feel that this would shift some of the burden back to the industrial user, and less of it would be subsidized by the residential ratepayers. So that's the whole point of this, is we're trying to shift some of the costs back to the actual people that we're providing service for, and not subsidizing it amongst all of the ratepayers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Mr. Johnson? Mr. Blair? Unmute. Peter, unmute.
Just a comment, Bill. That was a
Yes.
good presentation, and I was glad to see that your fee increases at wastewater seem more in line with what we should be increasing. I didn't see any major increases that would affect, developers, industry. Thanks for doing a good job down there.
Well, thank you, sir.
Councilor DeSimone, you had a question as well?
Yes, thank you, Vice President Jackson. Mr. Johnson, I don't mean to catch you by surprise, but do you have any idea where our rates stand in comparison to surrounding or comparative communities?
Is
Where
this for
these fees? Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, I do, but I gotta access it. We're higher than some, but with the proposed fee increases, it'll be like water. We're gonna be higher than some communities and lower than others. Norton, their residential fee right now is only $250, so that's way less than us, but they have way less, development in that town. Commercial is $600 and industrial is $600. I don't know how much industry is in Norton. Mansfield, their residential is $2,400 for a residential permit, and that's based on a 4-bedroom residence. That's $600 per bedroom. They also do an additional $600, per bedroom added on to that, and a $100 inspection fee. So, I mean, we're going to come in way lower than they are. North Attleboro, residential, it's $1,000 for a 6-inch connection, and greater than a 6-inch connection, $3,000 with a capacity fee of $12 a gallon. Fall River, they're lower than us. They're $250 right now with a trench fee of $150. New Bedford, they're $450 for a residential and commercial, so they're a little lower than us. And Taunton is $2,500 for a new unit, residential, and $2,500 commercial, $2,500 industrial. So they're higher than we are. So we kind of fall in the middle of all of them.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Assistant Superintendent Johnson? Councilman Waterman?
Yes. Hi, Mr. President. How does this affect the average residential ratepayer if these fees were enacted?
Well, had these fees been enacted now, our last rate increase wouldn't have had to be as high as it was. We calculated it out. It would have brought in an extra $166,170 of revenue. This isn't a huge amount of what our costs are. Yeah, it comes about to 1.61% of the enterprise cost fund. We recently had a rate increase. It would have reduced the rate increase by 22 cents, we believe. So, that's what we expect to mostly happen, is it'll offset future rate increases. Hopefully we can not have to ask for as much of a rate increase in the future. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Waterman. Councilor Delicio?
Thank you, Acting President Jackson. Bill, really nice job on the presentation. You answered a lot of the questions I have. A question I do have right now is the increases to fats, oils, and greases seems a little like it could impact the businesses, especially at this point. what would be the impact if we were to vote against that particular increase?
Well, once again, it'd be subsidized by the ratepayer like it is now. But we would really like to see the renewable permit, because right now we have people who will just, they ignore us, they might not be in compliance and there's nothing we can do about it. So if we have a renewable application, that's like one of the main things we want to get. So we'll have some recourse,
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Thank you for that clarification. My concern right now, honestly, isn't with the increase itself. It's just the timing of the increase.
Yeah, our increase right now for that is, where are we going with that?
We'll go from the 100 for the lifetime to the 200 to 250, 250.
Yeah, it does seem a lot, but there is a lot of work that goes into it. We have 116 fog permits out right now, which involves yearly inspections. We have to do reports on them, make sure that they're pumping their grease traps and stuff, following up, chasing down, business owners that don't respond to us. Some people just ignore us. So there is a lot of work that actually goes into it. And once again, that's all being subsidized by the ratepayer right now.
Yeah, no, Bill, that makes total sense. When would the first $250 biannual fee go into effect?
That is a good question. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I don't know the answer to that right now.
Okay. I will shoot you my cell phone because I might have a couple more questions once I go through this. But all in all, I agree with Council Blair. I think your presentation was strong to the point. My biggest concern with anything right now is what we're asking businesses to shoulder.
I understand your concerns.
Thank you, sir.
Is there anybody else here to speak in favor? Is there anybody else here to, oops, excuse me, Councilor Dolan, I apologize.
You can't see me tonight.
I know.
So just one more quick question. I'm sorry. The IPP program, that's businesses. The sewer main extensions, those are for developers as well, right?
Yes.
And okay, so it'll basically affect everybody.
Yeah, a sewer main extension's a one-shot deal. They'll come in, extend the sewer, and then it's done with, and then we own it forever. So we have to maintain it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Dolan. Anyone else? Anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone else here to speak in favor? Anyone else here to speak against? Anyone here to speak against? Do we have anyone who wants to speak neither for nor against? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? With that, Councilor Holmes, would you like to declare this public hearing closed, or would you like to leave it open?
I think I will close it, but I think we're going to be talking more in committee about some of the questions that have come up.
Certainly. Thank you. That we will declare that public meeting closed this evening. Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Johnson, for attending. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Moving right along. Mr. Withers.
Yes.
One.
The next public hearing is relative to the new Class 2 application from Matthew Borgelis, doing business as New England Autos, Inc., at 71 County Street with 6 customer spaces and 40 display spaces.
Thank you. Mr. Borgelis, I can see your name up there. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, thank you. Thanks for hanging in there with us this evening.
No problem at all.
So tell us a little bit about your business.
Should I get the video on? I'm not sure if you can see me right now.
No, we can't. I assume you're here to speak in favor.
Yes, I am. Yeah, so I'm trying to open up a used car dealership. I don't know why I can't get the video on right now.
Yeah, some people are having problems this evening, so that's okay.
We only enable video if there's exhibits to be shown.
No, I don't have any exhibits right now. So my name is Matthew Borgelis. I went to Attleboro High School. I graduated in 2012. and I went to college at Bridgewater State University. I graduated with a political science, legal studies major degree over there at 2017. And now I'm just trying to open up a new business and sell cars.
Great. And I understand that the building that you are going into, is that where the old insurance company was?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Pagels? Counselor Dolan, I see you.
Thank you. Hi, Matthew.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good.
So I went down there, and I'm the chair of the license committee, by the way, so this is why I'm asking you this. I went down there and I see the layout, and what I don't understand is there's a hair salon in that same building on the left-hand side.
Yes.
Where will those people park? Because you have every available inch of this parking lot.
So when I went over with this, I actually spoke to the hair salon, one who owns that, and I spoke to the landlord. They had me make because at first I was gonna make a parking lot plot map just for my business, but then when I talked to the city council, they said I need the parking lot map for the whole building. And so me and the person who owns the hair salon is gonna go over whose parking spots is who, and we already communicated with that. So I drew her parking spots into that map as well. And her parking spaces are all the parking zones to the left side, and as well as like the left side of the map, and as well as she has 3-4 parking spots in the back.
Do you have, okay, well, maybe we can chat tomorrow and you can tell me what numbers are hers and which ones are yours?
Yes, I could do that.
Okay, because when I looked at this layout, it looked like every single available space was yours.
Yeah, at first I was gonna just do mine, but they said it would be better if we just do the whole entire building.
Okay, so
But,
maybe
yes, I could send you.
You can indicate which are yours so I know for the future, because I'm the one that does the
Yeah.
inspections and stuff.
Okay.
All right,
I could send you an email with that if you would
All
like.
right, great. Thank you.
Yes.
And I
no
wish
problem.
you luck.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Any questions? Any other questions from any other counselors? Anybody else here to speak in favor?
President Jackson,
Yes.
Becky Halsey of 17 First Street would like to speak in favor of this public.
Thank you. Hello, Becky.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, awesome. So, yep, my name is Becky Halsey. I have worked in the city for 20 years and I've lived in the city for 15 and a half years. And I've also served as the community service and experiential learning coordinator at the high school for 17 years. And I talk about that because I knew Matt as a student. He was very active at AHS. He was a football player and a basketball player. I'm taller than him, but he's a much better basketball player than me. And he took my class as a senior and volunteered with Nancy Clark over at the courthouse. It was before they actually don't let the people down into the basement anymore for volunteering, but I got to go down there. It's really cool. So Matt is amazing. I saw him when he was at City Hall recently, and we started chatting, and I got his history of where he's been since AHS. And the fact that he graduated from Bridgewater in 2017, went to Fitchburg and got his experience with a used car dealership up there. And the fact that now it's 2021 and he wants to come home and use his experience to provide a service to our community is amazing. And although I don't personally need a used car right now, I'm super excited that Matt is here. He's moved home. He wants to live here. He wants to work here, and he wants to serve our city. And so supporting young entrepreneurs is exactly what our city should support. And that idea that self-actualization, when you think about Abraham Maslow's 5 needs, basically psychological needs, a human's most sought after desire is to fulfill the thing that makes them whole. And I think giving our young people a chance to use their skills and their passion in our city is exactly what we should be doing.
Thank you so much, Becky, for coming and speaking on Matthew's behalf. Could you just one more time for the record, could I get your address again? I know it's 21 First Street?
No, sorry, 17 First Street.
17. Thank you very much, Becky. Any questions for Becky, anyone? No. Any comments, questions? Thank you, Becky, for attending. Anybody else here to speak in favor? Is there anybody else?
President
Thank you.
Jackson, Matt
Yes, thank you.
Borgalis of 6 Marjorie Drive, or Marjorie Street, sorry.
Okay,
in
thank
Attleboro
you.
would like to address you.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
I'm doing well. So I did want to jump in also. So my name is Mac Borgelis. This is my brother, Matthew Borgelis. He's the one applying for the license to open up a car dealership. So me, myself also, I did go also to Attleboro High School, played 3 sports, basketball, football, and track. I won MVP for basketball my senior year, but Matt Borgelis beat me and he became the captain for the basketball team. So he did show that he was a leader within our community. So I did want to voice that at a young age, he did make a lot of friends and he is engaged in the community and knows a lot of students that did attend Attleboro High School in the past. And also he is in the community and he is a YMCA member. Me, myself, I did join the Committee for Human Rights this past July. So I am one of the members in the committee. And I also did want to say that our family is part of the community and we'd like to grow within the community. And that's exactly why Matthew chose to go into selling cars. And he did sell cars in Fitchburg and leased out a property out there for, let's say, probably right after 2017 when he graduated from Bridgewater. And then at this point, he did want to bring the dealership closer to the house where we live in Attleboro. So he has a lot of different connections within the city and a lot of different friends and community activists. And he does want to bring it here. I think it's a great idea. So he could build his brand within a city where he knows a lot of the people that do live and reside in the city.
Thank you so much, Matt. That was so nice of you to come forward this evening. We appreciate that. And we get to know Matthew just a little bit more. Questions, Council Blair. Council Blair, you're muted. And he's frozen.
He is.
Peter, you're frozen. Kind of like his hand waved up like that. It's kind of makes him look happy. Peter.
Okay, just one quick question for the applicant.
Sure.
Has he made any arrangements for repairs to his used cars? Because I don't think there's a garage facility on that property.
Matthew.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes. So Councilor Blair is asking you a question. Peter, if you would direct it towards him again, please.
Have you made any arrangement for repairs to the cars yourself that remain under warranty?
Yes, I do. I have multiple arrangements. I have arrangements with the Shell gas station on Pleasant Street. I already bring a bunch of cars towards there. I have another arrangement with Tito's Garage on 1076 Pleasant Street. And I also have another arrangement with Sam's Auto Repair right here down the street on 42 County Street, I believe that is. And the part of the arrangements that I made with my landlord at this facility on 71 County Street was that he didn't want any repairs to happen at all. He just only wanted the selling of vehicles there. So it would just only be just the retail sales of vehicles, and cars would only be on this lot once they're ready. So it'd be nice looking cars. No repairs would be done at all on this facility.
Sounds like a good operation, Matt. And the people you picked out, for the most part, for all of them, they're reputable. So I'm glad to see you've done that. This used to be a question we used to ask any used car dealer, was about the repairs.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Matt, and good luck.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions for Matthew? Is there anybody else here to speak in favor? Anyone else here to speak in favor? Anybody else here to neither speak neither for nor against? Anyone here to speak neither for nor against? Is there anybody here to speak against? I didn't say against, did I? No. Is there anybody else here to speak against? With that, Councilor Dolan, would you like to declare this public hearing closed, or would you rather leave it open?
Please close it.
Thank you. We'll close that public hearing. Thank you very much. So that concludes the public hearings for this evening. And moving right along, Mr. Withers, whenever you are ready.
Mayor's communication,
The mayor's communication, please.
February 16, 2021. Dear municipal councilors, I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the following reappointments for the post positions and for the terms as indicated. Ian Daly, Constable, 1 year, expires February 2022. And Jason Gittle, Planning Board, 5 years, February 2026.
Refer that to the Personnel and Veteran Service Committee, please.
I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the appointment of Jessica Reagan Salzman, 940 West Street, Attleboro, to fill an unexpired term on the Council on Human Rights. Terms to expire February 2023.
That also will go to the Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee. Thank you.
I respectfully submit a communication from Attleboro Public Schools Director of Finance, Mark Furtado, regarding a fiscal year 20 invoice from Gov Connection in the amount of $93.06. That was not received in time to be processed in the normal fiscal year 20 business cycle. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to authorize the school department to pay this previous year's school bill.
Refer that to the Budget Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Election Office Manager Cheryl Perry regarding the need for funds to purchase 6 Franklin 4-station voting booths. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $5,422 from account election salaries to account election supplies, election equipment.
City Property, please.
I respectfully submit a communication with Director of Veteran Services, Ben Quell, regarding the donation of $50.88 gift card to the Breakfast Place and a donation of $28.08 gift certificate to Bliss Brothers Dairy from an anonymous donor. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous donations to the City of Attleboro.
City Property, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Assistant Director of Council on Aging, Melissa Tucker, regarding the donation of $3,000 in gift cards to various venues from Home Instead Senior Care and the donation of $150 in Stop and Shop cards from the Holiday Spirit. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous donations to the City of Attleboro.
City Property, please.
For your information, I respectfully submit a communication from Health Agent Jessica Hosman regarding the need to increase the hours of the Health Department outreach worker / case manager from 19 hours to 35 hours. The Health Department is planning on budgeting this portion to a full-time position in fiscal year 22. However, due to the ongoing pandemic, the department is seeing an increase in the need for outreach services by our residents. The increase in salary for the remainder of fiscal year 21 will be paid from COVID CARES funding. I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Public Works, Michael Tyler, regarding the need for funds to purchase a solar LED flashing intersection ahead sign for Augsburg Drive. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $1,500 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account Public Works Supplies Safety Signs. Upon approval, the available balance in Reserve Fund for transfer to include any pending requests will be $76,826.81.
Public Works Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Water, Courtney Wunschel, regarding the need to transfer funds for the permanent paving of Franklin Street. In December of 2019, your honorable body approved funding for the replacement of the water main on Franklin Street to include removal of the old water main, installation of the new water main, installation and removal of temporary bypass, and installation and tie-in of the new water services to the residents, as well as materials and labor for the temporary paving of Franklin Street. Although the permanent paving has been budgeted in fiscal year 2021, it has been determined that the funds should be part of the capital projects for the Franklin Street replacement. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $28,395.25 from account Water Enterprise Fund Trench Repair to account Water Enterprise Fund Other Financing Sources, and to further transfer $28,395.25 from account Water Enterprise Fund Other Financing Sources to Fund 3335 Franklin Street Water Main.
I'm going to put that into the capital improvements.
Okay.
Please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Water, Courtney Wunschel, regarding the need to purchase a new Ford Ranger 4x4 Super Cab with 6-foot bed and toolbox. This vehicle will replace a 2008 Ford F-250 van that has 136 miles and is off the road due to extensive work needed in order to pass inspection. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body appropriate $31,286 from account Water Enterprise Retained Earnings to account Water Enterprise Fund Replacement Truck.
Capital improvements, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Water, Courtney Wunschel, regarding the need for funds for upgrades to the SCADA system at the Water Department. The upgrade of the SCADA computers and security was first on the capital improvement plan for the Water Department for fiscal year 2021 through 2025. The Water Department originally presented the need to fund this project during the capital project meetings with the mayor, auditor, budget administrator, and treasurer in January 2020. It was presented as a necessary project as a local water utility had recently experienced a security breach of their computer system. This project was proposed along with several other projects, including the cleaning and lining of Park Place and Lonsdale Avenue, for which the council just approved a transfer in order to fund several replacement vehicles for the Water Department. Funding for which has since been approved by the council in the Wading River Pilot Study Project, which is currently in the process of funding approval through the council. All of these projects were presented to the administration as urgent needs for the Water Department in early 2020, but none were approved to move forward as the revenues for the Water Department were uncertain at that time due to the COVID-19 crisis. In light of recent events with two separate occasions of SCADA security breach at two separate U.S. water utilities, it is imperative that this project be moved ahead as soon as possible, especially as remote access to Attleboro's SCADA system is very similar to that of one of the affected utilities. Security of the Water Department SCADA system is critical to operation of the plants in order to provide drinking water that is safe for our residents and businesses. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body appropriate $118,700 from account Water Enterprise Fund Retained Earnings to Fund 3313 SCADA to fund this essential project. This cost includes a 10% contingency.
Capital improvements, please.
For your information, the Attleboro Public Library Board of Trustees has voted to extend an offer to Amy Rillinger to become library director and that she has accepted the position.
FYI to all councilors.
Yep. I respectfully submit it for confirmation by your honorable body the appointment of Jennifer Keating Roca, 2 Benefit Street, to fill an expired term on the Cultural Council. Term to expire February 2024.
Personnel, Veterans, Human Services Committee, please.
I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the appointment of Joshua George, 1161B Oak Hill Avenue, to fill an expired term as a constable. Term to expire February 2022.
Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services, please.
And I respectfully submit for confirmation by your honorable body the appointment of Lee Ann Bolio, 708 Newport Avenue, to fill an expired term on the Disabilities Commission. Term to expire February 2024.
Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services, please.
Sincerely, Paul Hero, Mayor.
And are there any other communications?
There is just one, and it's an FYI. We received correspondence from Mass DOT advising the MBTA filed an environmental notification form for the potential service reductions in 2021. The filing and accompanying documents may be viewed on the MBTA website at www.mbta.com/forging-ahead.
Thank you.
And that is all.
Thank you, Mr. Withers. And Mr. Withers, before we continue, before we go into Committee of the Whole, I already had a snafu early this evening, and I was reminded by a couple of counselors that
I'm aware of that, and I should have jumped in, but I didn't. So
no worries. So we should probably take a vote on the minutes. I did second from Councilor Delicio, but I neglected to do a roll call vote.
So this will be a roll call vote on approving the minutes that were read earlier.
That is correct. And we begin with Council Holmes, please.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Thank you all very much. I apologize for that snafu. With that, I entertain a motion to go into the committee of the whole. All those, I will have to take a roll call vote for that as well. Do I have a- Thank you. Begin the roll call vote with Councilor Blaze.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes. Thank you.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. We are now in the committee of the whole. If there's anyone present that would like to speak to the council on any matter, you may do so now. I am limiting my time because we are running late. We still have our motions, so maybe if we could just limit to 15 minutes per person, that would be great.
President Jackson,
Yes.
Rebecca Halsey of 17 First Street would like to address the council.
Thank you, James.
Okay,
Back.
I'm back. Okay, so can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so as we approach a year of COVID restrictions, the mental and physical health of our community members should be paramount to our city. And one of the coping skills, as evident by anyone who is giving out coping skills, so mental health providers and physicians, one of their number one things is we should exercise and we should be outside. And during the winter, access to outside walking paths is, we have a great resource in the city. We have so many parks. And one of the other things I love about Attleboro is that we have a lot of sidewalks. But it's winter and it snows. And the snow removal currently, I think could be improved. And I'm not looking to complain. I'm looking for a solution. Because access to snowshoes or cross-country skis or boots or, appropriate footwear for trekking through snow, mud, ice, and all of that fun stuff is not universal. I have rain boots, but that doesn't mean that everyone has rain boots. And I walked through a massive puddle today, which was great because it reminded me like I was a kid and, I did do some splashing, but not everyone has that kind of footwear. And where like it snowed a week ago, and I walked downtown because I live on First Street now and I can walk downtown, and I was at the opening ceremony for Monique Jacobs' studio, Some Vibes, and there was ice outside of her studio the night before, and I needed to get rid of it, but it had been there for a long time. And I didn't have one of those ice picks. And so I went to the city and I went to Public Works and I asked for salt. And they're like, we don't normally give that to business owners. I was like, okay. And so I was able to get that from another source who that person and the other people gave me. He was like, here, Becky, you can have, here's the salt removal, here's a shovel, here's some gloves, because I want to be part of the solution, but the problem's bigger than me. So I can make some little effort to make sure that people don't slip when they were there for the opening ceremony, but that doesn't help someone who parked on the street. We do have public parking in the center of town, but if you park and you have to then climb over snow to get up to the sidewalk, that's semi-dangerous. I'm tall, and so my legs are super long, and I can do that. But if you're a passenger and you are like banging your door against snowbanks, that's not awesome. So in cities, and there are other cities, that have snow removal, When you go to Boston, now I haven't been to Boston in a while, but I don't recall having to jump over snow piles in order to access businesses. And where we are trying to increase foot traffic downtown, we have all these great signs that you can park downtown, which is great. But when you get down there, we haven't done a great job of welcoming people with all kinds of footwear to our downtown businesses. And so I've noticed, now I was a trooper. Today is Mardi Gras. And I was like, I'm not doing any Mardi Gras celebrations until the city council thing is over. But apparently I will be going to bed because it took forever to get to this point. But so I had a point to that story. So I've noticed like that there's like requests for funding for capital improvements. And I wondered if, and I know that there's, okay, I don't know how this works. So I'm just putting it out there. Could there be, could each ward or every precinct have a snow blower and like have it live at the counselor's house, I guess, and be like, okay, so this is the ward or the precinct snow blower. So if someone in that ward needed the snow blower so that we could clear off the city sidewalk.
Excuse me for 1 minute, Becky. I know, I think I kind of know where you're going with this and what your point is, and I just want to get to that point. But a snow blower for each counselor or each ward or every counselor or anybody in a ward, that's just, honestly, I can say it right off the top, and I'm sure all my fellow colleagues and anybody else that's listening will agree. That's something that's going to happen in the city.
Okay, so wait,
just for a couple reasons, and let me just tell you why.
Okay.
Liability, and we do have a public works yard that does take care of our sidewalks, and we do have an ordinance where businesses are supposed to take care of the sidewalks in front of their businesses, and people who request sidewalks all the time and they get them, but they don't end up taking care of them half the time either, even though they want a beautiful sidewalk, but they don't always clear them. But it's their responsibility too. And but you know, it's all roses and fun sunshine, but that's just not a possibility that can happen. But
okay, so that was one idea. If someone bought snow blowers as opposed to the city buying them, if someone donated 6 snow blowers to wards, would the city be able to accept them?
You mean to give to a private citizen? Like, yeah, that's, it's, we can add it to our agenda. We'll put it in the public works.
Okay,
and we'll have a discussion with Superintendent of Public Works and the mayor, because the mayor is ultimately the one that would decide something like that. But we can put that into a committee, which will be mine, Public Works, and have a discussion, and I'll be in touch with you.
Okay, well, can I ask another question? So if now I'm in Ward 3, so technically downtown is part of my ward. So I could, with my shovel, go down and shovel the path in between where County Street meets up with South Main Street so that I could get to Morin safely. And as long as I promise not to sue the city if I fell, would that be something I could do as a citizen?
You can go ahead and take a shovel and bring it anywhere you want. But we do a really good job at, I believe Public Works does a pretty good job at taking care of what we can take care of at this time, but I will bring those concerns of yours to the superintendent, and I'll be in touch with you.
Okay, I'm not quite done yet though.
Okay, you only have 10 minutes, 5 more minutes. Thank you.
Recognize that. I'm a teacher. I got this time limit. So I believe that the city does a job on the streets. I won't give it an adjective because that wouldn't be fair. But I just gave one adjective. Okay. So the thing is, in terms of mental and physical health of our population, there are sidewalks that have not been cleared yet. Now the rain and the 45 degrees that we had today will help. But in parks along river, like the new path from Lampco to Maple Street, that like there's a nice long sidewalk there. And as of a couple days ago, the sidewalk hadn't been cleared the whole way. And so you can notice how well we've done our sidewalks by how many people are walking in the street, which again is a hazard. Now I have a nice bright yellow vest that when I wear it, people think that I'm a crossing guard, and I could be a crossing guard. But the fact that I have that, again, that's a resource that I have, but not everyone has it. And so we can tell the how well the city has cleared our streets by how many people are walking on the sidewalks and how many people are walking in the street. And if they're not walking in the street or the sidewalks, maybe they've chosen to stay home because it's safer, yet that doesn't help with their mental and physical health.
Okay. Does anyone have any question for Ms. Halsey? No questions? Well, Becky, we'll take all that under advisement this evening. And like I said, I'll bring that to the Public Works Director, and we'll have a conversation, and I'll be in touch.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else before us this evening to speak before the Committee of the Whole? And if there's not, I would ask for an adjournment, an rise from the City of the Whole, please.
Second.
Thank you. All those, we got to take a roll call vote, starting with Councilor Holmes. Steve, you're muted.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delisio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, Mr. Withers. At this time, we'll start with committee reports. And Mr. Withers, would you read the letter of intention, please?
In regards to the reconsideration, correct?
Yes, please, sir.
Okay. February 3rd, 2021, Stephen Withers, City Clerk / Clerk of the Council, 77 Park Street, Attleboro, Mass. Dear Mr. Withers, I, Todd M. Cobus, hereby file with the Clerk of the Council / City Clerk, in accordance with the Attleboro Home Rule Charter, Section 2-9E, notice of motion to reconsider the vote of the Municipal Council taken at a regular meeting of the Attleboro Municipal Council held on Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021, which reads as follows. From the docket of February 2nd, 2021, I move to approve the reappointment of Courtney Wunschel as Superintendent of Water for a 3-year term expiring in February 2024. My hope is that due to the nature of this appointment with regard to our drinking water, councils will consider adjusting the term of the appointment from 3 years to 1 year. Warmest regards, Todd M. Cobus, Ward 3.
Thank you. We're going to begin with committee reports. I'm going to start with Councilor Cobus. Councilor Cobus, would you like to read your motion, please?
I move to reconsider vote number 7 of February 2nd, 2021 for the reappointment of Courtney Wunschel as Superintendent of Water for a 3-year term expiring February 2024.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments? Councilor Cobus.
Yes, due to attendance tonight, I try to object.
Thank you, Councilor Cobus. There will be no further discussion on the matter this evening because of the charter objection. Moving right along, Councilor Cobus, would you like to begin with the finish? Do you have committee minutes tonight? Motions?
Sorry, just unmuting. I do. I would.
You can continue if you'd like.
Sure thing. Reporting for zoning and land use. From the docket of February 16th, 2021, I move to call a public hearing on March 2nd, 2021 to address the adoption of district improvement financing within the city transit oriented district.
Second.
Thank you. Have a roll call vote?
Sure, this is just a call for the public
just
hearing.
public
Yeah.
hearing, excuse me. Thank you
Sure.
very much, Councilor Cobus. Yep, great. So that public hearing will be held on March 2nd, 2021.
Need a roll call vote.
Roll call vote for a public hearing?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Have a roll call vote starting with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Councilor Cobus?
From the docket of February 2nd, 2021, I move to accept a land donation from New England Power Company, DBA National Grid, of 9.5 acres in the Chartley Brook watershed area at 0 Pike Avenue, plat number 205, lot number 3. The subject property with an assessed value of $106,900 will be donated to the Conservation Commission to achieve permanent protection of rare wildlife in the city.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments?
We discussed this last week. I think it's a great idea and encourage people to support it.
Thank you. With that, we'll have a roll call vote, starting with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Thank you. Councilor
That,
Cobus?
that concludes the business of the Zoning and Land Use Committee. I call for committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. And we'll go right back over to the left side and get back to normal. We'll start with Councilor Blair.
Public Safety Emergency Management has no business to bring forward this evening. But if I could, I'd like to give a thank you to the people at Sturdy Memorial Hospital where I spent some time the last 2 weeks. The nurses were great, the food was great. They did a heck of a job up there with this COVID situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Blair. Councilor DeSimone.
Thank you, Vice President Jackson. Traffic and Transportation has no business to report this evening, but we look forward to a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you, Councilor DeSimone. Councilor Conti, your turn.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Madam Acting President. I have about 10 things to bring before the council this evening, starting with from the docket of February 16th, 2021, I entertain a motion to appropriate $64,205.74 from the undesignated fund balance free cash general government to the fire department purchase vehicles for the purchase of a 2021 hybrid Ford utility command vehicle.
Second.
We have a second. Any comments?
This is fairly routine in the fire department established vehicle replacement program. The exception being that it's a hybrid rather than a gasoline powered vehicle. During a committee meeting, was asked whether or not the hybrid would be as dependable, and I'm at the point now where I believe that it'll be as good or better than the gas models. So I'm very comfortable in this. I urge my fellow councilors to support it.
Thank you, Councilor Conti. Councilor Blair.
Well, I'll bring it up again because you know I'm not in favor of these vehicles. You're looking to spend $64,000 in a regular Explorer, which is a very, very reliable piece of equipment. Would probably be in the neighborhood of half that amount, or at least a maximum of $40,000. I don't personally think that the maintenance on this particular vehicle is it will exceed maintenance on a standard Explorer. I think at this point, it's sort of foolish to be spending money that we really don't have. And the maintenance will have to go outside the fire department regular maintenance program. So I don't think it's a good fit. I don't think it's time for this yet. And the cost is extraordinary when you got to spend $64,000 for the fire chief's car when you could be spending $40,000. And if it drove by you and you wouldn't know the difference, and the equipment would be basic, the safety part of the equipment would be the same. And it's not a vehicle that can be maintained easily within the department's own facility. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote starting with Councilor Blair.
You're muted, Steve.
You're muted.
Mr. Blair,
No.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
No.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
8 yeas, 2 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of February 16th, 2021, I entertain a motion to call for a public hearing on March 16th, 2021 regarding the capital improvements program for fiscal year 2022 through 2026.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments, Councilor Conti?
Yeah, I've been working a lot on this plan. I circulated to the councilors this week $2,700,000 plus of urgent projects that are in the plan, and I've emailed all the department heads of the urgent projects to appear in front of my committee on February 23rd, and then following on March 9th. So the public hearing is not typically heavily attended, but we have to get it out of the way. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Councilor Conti. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote starting with Councilor Holmes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of January 19th, 2021, I move to approve the following loan. And I read this during our committee, so I won't read the whole loan.
Great.
But it is for $943,000 for the replacement of SCADA system in the wastewater department.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Delicio. Any comments, Councilor Conti?
Yes, this is we've taken a tour of the water department, wastewater department many times over the last several years. They're all run by programmable logic controls, which are simply computers. Computers have an expected life, and that expected life is short. And even though these are built to industrial strength and industrial environments, they don't last forever. So it is time to get the wastewater department brought up to speed, even though that plant will probably be decommissioned in my lifetime. These are not long-lasting items, and they're necessary to operate the plant. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? None. Have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair, Ms. DeSimone.
Yes.
Comment, Kate, you missed my hand.
Oh.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I did want to make a comment, and evidently you missed my hand.
I did miss your hand. I've been missing a lot tonight.
That's all right.
Everybody's hands.
I'll put it right up to the screen next time. Where this, as Mr. Conti just said, is something we have to look at every so many years because they do wear out. If we know computers especially get obsolete, you can't get parts, the rest of it. Shouldn't this be something that's put into the budget somehow in a retained earnings account where when it comes up $1 million, we at least have part of it put aside? Mr. Conti, maybe answer that.
Yes, if I can answer that. The last time I met with Tom Hayes, I asked him to consider developing a capital improvements budget inside the wastewater department for exactly that, Peter. And the money is too tight that he hasn't figured out a way to do that. Now, perhaps if the new fee structure goes through the council, he'll have an opportunity to do that. I'd like to see the same thing in the water department so that we would have a capital improvements mini plan for the enterprise system that would be funded separately from the capital improvement plan as a total. But we haven't gotten to that point yet. But I like the thinking.
Well, we do agree on this, I think, Mr. Conti, because it's something that's predictable. Definitely predictable, whether it be 10 years, 12 years, whatever. So this is something I feel should be put in the budget. I realize they need it. I'll vote for it this time, but I'm dead set against these loans coming up for $1 million because you know and I know it isn't $1 million by the time you pay the loan off. We should be budgeting and putting money away for this. You run your household and you know you're going to need a roof in 10 years. I'm sure you try to squirrel money away to take care of that roof. And evidently with our system now and our management, and I'm not throwing stones at the superintendent down there, but that's not happening. And I'd like to see it happen. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments? No comments, seeing none? Mr. Withers?
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of January 19th, 2021, I move to approve the following loan. And once again, I read this during committee, so I'll abbreviate. It is for $255,000 to be appropriated for the baseline flow monitoring for infiltration and inflow to the sewer system.
Second.
You have a second. Is there any other comments?
This is pretty well discussed by Tom during the committee meeting, and this baseline infiltration and inflow to the city is a very serious thing, and I'm happy to see that he's trying to get on top of it. My feelings are the same as there was the last loan order, that I wish that there was a capital improvement budget in the plan, which might mean a little spike in the water sewer rate, but at least it would not require a loan order to get the infiltration inflow in order to comply with national standards. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Councilor Conti. Councilor Blair, I saw your hand.
Thank you. My comments are the same as the last one. You've got to have something put aside. You can't keep borrowing money. Borrowing money costs money. And we're worried about taxes and people staying in their homes and the rest of it. You can't wait till you have to borrow to do some of these. Mr. Conti's right. There should be a capital improvement line item in these budgets to take care of these things when they come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Blair. Councilor Reynolds? You're muted.
Thank you, Kate. I always forget about unmuting myself.
Okay.
I would like to say that I always felt that the enterprise systems were put in place because they were supposed to be able to pay for things within their own department. And that's why an enterprise system was there. Unfortunately, I feel that the enterprise system itself gives too much money back to the city, and that some of that money that goes back to the city should be in a retained earnings that they keep for themselves to pay for these kinds of things. This is really outrageous that we have an enterprise system and we're spending this kind of money for things that should be paid for within the department. And those are my comments.
Thank you, Councilor Reynolds. Councilor Delicio.
Thank you, Acting President Jackson. I agree with Peter and Sarah, but the other thing is, you know, a big theme of this term, especially throughout the pandemic, has been planning for the unplanned. And a lot of the unplanned, as Councilor Conti said, you know, we've got to keep our standards of an aging infrastructure. Let's remember that our infrastructure is old, our equipment is old, our buildings are old, but we also have to deal with unfunded mandates from the state and federal government that come down. As the standards change, as the expectations change, there's going to be funds and there's going to be upgrades that need to be addressed. And I think that Councilor Reynolds is right. I think it's probably time that we look at how the money in the enterprise system interacts with the general government account. I don't know if any fund rather, I don't know what can be done, what can't, but I know we're still waiting on the indirect study to come back. So I think there's a bigger conversation to be had here.
Thank you, Councilor Delicio. Anyone else this evening? No. Thank you. With hearing none, we'll have roll call vote starting with Councilor Holmes, please.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Reluctantly, yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yeah.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
With reservations, yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
From the docket of January 19th, 2021, I move to approve the following loan. Once again, I read this during committee. We'll abbreviate that it is for $372,000 for the design, permitting, bidding, construction, and oversight and construction costs associated with a valve replacement to the city's South Attleboro pumping station.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Delicio. Any comments or questions?
These valves are very expensive and they don't last forever, but they're built to last a long time. So I encourage my councilors to support the loan order with the same caveat as we've all discussed the last two times, which I'm sure we all feel the same, including the indirect costs. Everything's connected, and that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Councilor Conti. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote starting with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes, with reservations.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yeah.
Ms. Reynolds,
Reluctantly, yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of January 5th, 2021, I move to approve the following loan. Once again, I read this during committee. I'll abbreviate that it is for $505,000 for the permitting, bidding, and sub-consultant engineering and testing associated with the Wading River pilot study.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Delicio. We have a second. Any comments?
Yes, this Wading River constitutes 35% of our water during the summer and 50% during the winter. And to keep this facility functioning at its premium, this pilot study is to assist with challenges that we've been facing. And Wading River has been an issue ever since I've been a counselor. So I'm looking forward to taken the efforts to resolve the issues. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Councilor Cobus?
Thank you. I 100% agree with Councilor Conti. This, I very much look forward to seeing the results of this in moving past hopefully moving past the TTHM issue we have in that area with the Wading River site. So yeah, I encourage people to support this.
Thank you, Councilor Cobus. Any other comments? Councilor Waterman?
Yes, question for Councilor Conti. My understanding is that there is a good possibility that if this is approved, that we would have an opportunity to have a $200,000 grant later on this year. Is that something you believe too?
That is my understanding, but it's only a possibility, not a guarantee.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote starting with Councilor Holmes, please.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes,
10 yeas, 0 nays.
that motion passes as well.
Thank you, Madam Acting President. That concludes the business that the Capital Improvements and City Development Committee has to bring before the council this evening. We look forward to a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you, Councilor Conti. Councilor Waterman?
Yes, thank you. Reporting from the Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee from the docket of February 16th, 2021. I move to approve the reappointments for the positions and terms as indicated. 5 folk: Mahesh Patel to the Board of Trustees of the Library for 3 years, February 2024 expiration. Bruce Hagerman, Conservation Commission, 3 years, February 2024. Rose McConey, Conservation Commission, also 3 years, February 2024. Raymond Gillette, Council on Aging, 4 years, February 2025, and Jacqueline Romaniki to the Municipal Building Commission, 3 years, February 2024.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any comments?
Just all these folks enjoy the work they're doing and would like to continue. And I think probably doing a very good job.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote starting with Council Blair.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes,
10 yeas, 0 nays.
motion passes.
And from the docket of February 16th, 2021, I move to accept $300 in Stop and Shop gift cards from the Disabled American Veterans Chapter 2091 to the Veterans Services Office.
Second.
Thank you. We have a second. Any comments?
Just that it constantly just amazes me how giving the people of Attleboro can be. Thank you.
Yes, they are. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Holmes, please.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes,
10 yeas, 0 nays.
thank you. Motion passes.
And from the docket of February 16th, 2021, I move to transfer $200 from account Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account Public Library Longevity to fulfill a memorandum of agreement with the Library Employees Association dated through June of 2023.
Second.
Thank you. We have a second. Any comments?
Just that this completes a contract, so it's just contractual.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote starting with Council Blair, please.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes.
And from the docket of February 16th, 2021, I move to approve the appointment of Melissa Tucker of 68 Fulton Street, Attleboro, Mass. to fill an unexpired term of Director of Council on Aging, term to expire February of 2024.
Second.
Thank you. We have a second. Any comments?
Melissa is well prepared to take on this responsibility, and we are very fortunate to have her. That's it.
Any other comments, questions? Council Blair?
It's nice to see somebody second in command taking over a job that, as Councilor Waterman said, I feel she's really prepared for. She's had a good mentor, and I look forward to her in that position.
Any other comments or questions? Excuse me. Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Council Holmes, please.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
And the
Motion
last
passes.
appointment from the docket of February 2, 2021, I move to approve the reappointment of Cynthia Amara as city solicitor for 1 year, term ending February 2022.
Second.
Thank you. We have a second. Any comments?
You have one raising their hands, but I'll just say that to my knowledge, Cindy has done a very credible job, and we'll hear the other comments.
Thank you. Councilor Cobus?
And the one thing I want to draw attention to is I still think there's need for a broader discussion on if the city council should have its own solicitor. And I just wanted to raise attention to that. I agree that Cynthia has been doing a pretty good job for us, but it's something I struggle with, and I don't know where exactly I sit on whether we should or should not have our own, but I want to draw attention to that again as something that's been going through my mind quite a bit lately. So that's all.
Thank you, Councilor Cobus. Council Blair?
I echo Councilor Cobus's concern. Our city solicitor works directly for the mayor. We have no control. And I think sometimes decisions are biased. So I think we should have a lawyer represent, a solicitor representing the council. Thank you.
Councilor Dolan?
Don't we have this in a committee somewhere? Is this a new business? Did somebody do new business to research for study and recommendation, our own representation?
I know, Councilor Dolan, that we have discussed this before many times. I don't remember if it went in, or if it did go into a committee, we would have noticed it throughout our dockets right along. It might have gotten out, or perhaps it might be, it might have been something that we sent up to, I'm not sure if we sent it up to Mayor Hero or Mayor Dumas. We might have done both, and probably Judy Robbins back in my day, to talk about getting our own city solicitor. But I know this discussion has been going on for years and years and years, but I can't recall exactly what we did with that. But I for some reason, I thought Councilor Conti brought it out and it went into a committee or something. Am I right, Councilor Conti?
So yes, you are. There's been a debate for years about whether we should have an in-house city solicitor department, or because when you look at the money we spend in the school department and in the city side with the different specialties of lawyers that we hire, it's a very tidy sum. And We got nowhere with the last administration, but it's certainly something that should be discussed during budgeting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councilor DeSimone.
Thank you. Thank you, Acting President Jackson. Just by way of clarification, I have in front of me an agenda dated January 5th, 2021, which lists under the ordinances, elections, and legislative matters, that very piece of business that was submitted by Ms. Holmes and Mr. Kobus in October of 18. So it's still on the agenda. So I don't know what that means in terms of disposition.
Great. Thank you so much, Councilor DeSimone.
Yep.
Councilor Waterman.
Yes, I'll address this question also to Councilor Conti as Chair of the Rules Committee. In your opinion, Councilor Conti, would this require a change in not just the ordinances, but the city charter?
No, I do not think so. The city used to have a city solicitor under its payroll. His name is Mr. Lee.
Right.
And he served the city for many, 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 many years. When he retired and then expired, we had to go outside. In recent times, we had attorney Mangiarotti, who was working for an outside law firm and then came inside the building to maintain an office inside the building. But then he had some health issues and that arrangement disappeared. So it's something that certainly needs to be looked at. I'm glad it's still on our agenda. Maybe it'll get some attention.
Yeah. Thank you. Councilor Holmes. You're muted.
Thank you. So I think that there's two different issues here. One is the council having our own solicitor and the administration having their own solicitor. And then the other issue is, do we want to have somebody that's full-time as a city solicitor that's in-house, that's here 40 hours a week? So I feel like there's two separate issues here. And we did get a ruling from the city solicitor regarding that, and I can certainly find that and forward it to everyone, but I like that we're having this discussion again, and I think it's worth kind of exploring, do we want to have somebody that's in-house 40 hours a week? And I know one of the arguments is that with the current arrangement, we have the whole firm that we can technically get support from, versus if we hired just one attorney, then it would just, that individual may not be an expert in all these different areas that we are needing. So that's kind of some of the pros and cons to both. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Holmes. Councilor Blair.
Just for some of the newer councilmen, when Mr. Mangiarotti retired from that law firm, he came to work for us directly. He had an office upstairs. I felt much more comfortable if you could walk down that corridor, knock on his door, and go in and ask him a question at any time. So I feel we were much better represented under that scenario than we are now. But he worked directly for the city.
Yeah.
He had left the law firm in Boston, if you remember correctly.
Councilor Conti.
Yes, so Councilor Blair, I concur with you. And I work in the city of Taunton, where there are 5 lawyers working every day, all day, on the 4th floor, available to every department, including the municipal council. So there is another way of doing this. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. If there are no other comments this evening, we shall vote on the original motion. Councilor Delicio.
Thank you, President Jackson. So yeah, I mean, there's wisdom to having a council solicitor. We've talked about it time and time again. It's important to me to put my 2 cents in on this, because there are going to be times, regardless of the council, regardless of the mayor, where there's going to be a logjam, where there's going to be issues that we need our own counsel, or we need our own ability to get the answers that we're going to need without worrying about, and I'm not saying this is the case. I'm not saying this is the case, but without worrying is, are we getting the right information from the city solicitor? Because as it was previously pointed out, the city solicitor does report to the mayor. To Councilor Waterman's question, no, it's not a charter situation, but it's always a challenge when we're trying to add personnel through the budget or whatnot. But to Council Holmes' point, this is probably the best time to start the conversation as we're heading into budget sooner than later. I don't know if we'll see anything in this budget, but I think it's something we need to keep that communication alive.
Thank you, Councilor Delicio. No other comments? Seeing none? Mr. Withers, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Blair, please.
Yes, Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. D. Simone.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mr. Waterman.
Yes.
Mr. Delicio.
Yes.
Mr. Cobus.
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Ms. Holmes.
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
That concludes the business.
Thank you.
That concludes the business of the Personnel, Veterans, Human Services Committee. We'll meet at the next appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilor Dolan, you'll be doing the motions for Public Works this evening, so I'll call on you, please.
Thank you. Reporting for Public Works Committee from the docket of February 16th, 2021. I move to transfer $24,925.95 from account Wastewater Enterprise Fund Reserve Fund for transfer to account Water Enterprise Fund Lights and Power to replenish the funds used for an emergency repair.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Delicio. Any comments?
No, well, we discussed it in committee.
Thank you, Councilor Dolan. Any other comments? Councilor Blair.
What was the repair?
The repair, I have to relinquish the chair, but if I relinquish the chair, I have to relinquish it to you.
Just give me an answer.
Yes, please.
More point of information than a point of order, but if I'm not through the chair, I believe this is for the light down by Nobby Crafters.
Excuse me?
The light down
Yes.
by CVS on North Main Street by Nobby Crafters.
Yes, that's correct.
That's been a habitual problem, so I think that the repair was more extensive than normal.
Mhm.
Didn't you just read February 6, 2021, a transfer of 24,000 wastewater enterprise fund? Or did I miss
Boy.
it?
Oh, no, that looks like a Scribner's error.
Yeah, that's a Scribner's error. Good
So-
job, Mr. Blair. You picked up on that. I'm pretty impressed with that. As someone who hasn't been around for a couple of
I
weeks.
was on at night, but not last night.
So that's a Scribner's error. So Jay, if you would withdraw your second, please.
Withdrawn.
And Laura, if we can just add in there, let me just go back on my notes because I still have them from last week. So that you have the proper reading right here. Hang on. Yep. Bear with me. So many folders.
It says,
Public Works.
it says wastewater on your committee minutes from last week.
It's for a, Vice President Jackson, for a filter press. Is that
Oh, the
jog-
filter press. Yes, that's what we're talking about. I'm thinking of the week before that. Yep, so you have my notes, Laura, right? No.
I notes.
So, because I don't have everything in front of us, on me, why?
Yeah, I didn't know I was reading your motions till.
Yes, I know. I apologize. I forgot that you were reading those. So let's hold off on doing these motions and we'll do them in 2 weeks. I don't have my back material in front of me.
Somewhere I read that, Kate, that it was the press.
Yep, and I know I read it last week in committee.
Well, can we do the other motion for the lift pump?
Yeah, we'll just hold off, Laura. That way, because I'd rather give Peter the correct answer. Okay? We're gonna cancel budget and you can go right into licenses, please.
So we're gonna cancel public works.
Yeah, excuse me. Yes, Counselor.
Why are we canceling budget?
No.
I mean, not budget, I'm sorry, Public Works.
Oh, all right.
I got too many faces in front of me.
Totally get it.
Okay, so Public Works has no business tonight and call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Correct.
You want me to do licenses now?
Please.
Or- Okay. Reporting for the Licenses Committee from the docket of February 16th, 2021, I move to hold a public hearing on March 16th, 2021 regarding an application to waive section 11-15.1 to serve alcoholic beverages or wine on city property for a private party from Adam Semple.
Second.
Motion is in order. Any comments?
It's for a wedding. We discussed it a bit in committee and we're just gonna hold a public hearing.
Thank you. Any comments? All those in favor? Excuse me, we're gonna have a roll call vote, beginning with Counselor Holmes, please.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes,
10 yeas, 0 nays.
motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of February 16th, 2021, I move to approve the Class 2 application for R&D Auto Sales of 116 Dickens Street with 5 customer parking spaces and 8 display spaces.
Second.
Okay, motion is in order. Any comments?
No comments. We discussed in committee, he was late because he was having a hard time getting his lease agreement from his landlord.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? I mean, we have to do a roll call vote. See, this is what we've been doing. Roll call vote, starting with Counselor Blair, please.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone, Ms. DeSimone,
Yes. Yes.
Mr.
Sorry.
Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes,
10 yeas, 0 nays.
motion passes.
Last item from the docket of February 16th, 2021, I move to approve the application for an automatic amusement device license for Papagino's at 103 Pleasant Street.
Do we have a second? Thank you, Counselor Delissio. Any comments?
Nope.
Okay, anybody else? Any questions, comments? Seeing none, we'll have roll call vote, beginning with Counselor Holmes, please.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes,
10 yeas, 0 nays.
motion passes.
That's all the business I have for licenses committee, and I'd like to call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time, please.
Thank you, Counselor Dolan, and I apologize for not getting you my motions to you earlier today. I apologize about that.
That's all right.
Counselor Reynolds.
How about Mr. Delissio?
Oh, Counselor Delissio, excuse me. I thought, see, Jay, you know what? I'm just missing you today. I've got you down here, Peter up here. Don't ask me what's going on.
The second time you've canceled my committee tonight, Kate. Reporting for budget appropriations, I have two motions to bring forth tonight from the docket of February 16th, 2021. I move to approve the transfer of $134.48 from account Water Enterprise Reserve Fund for transfer to account Water Enterprise Fund taxes to other communities to pay Rentham real estate taxes.
Second.
Thank you. We have a second. Motion is in order. Any comments?
Yep, briefly, this is just to pay the final tax bill for the water department to take care of taxes in Rentham for a property we own there.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Blair, please.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. And from the docket of February 16th, 2021, I entertain a motion to authorize a payment of $10,020.80 for a fiscal 20 invoice from Aggregate Industries to the Public Works Department. There is no transfer of funds needed.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Councilor Dolan? Motion is in order. Any comments?
We did talk about this earlier tonight, but this is for invoices for liquid asphalt, which was received 12/16/2020 for work that was done in fiscal 21.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Holmes, please.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And that is all the business for budget and appropriations. Would like to call for a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Now, Councilor Reynolds.
Reporting for City Property and Claims Committee from the docket of February 16th, 2021. I move to accept the donation of a portable electronic purifier with the approximate value of $199 from CC Technologies, Inc. to the Police Department.
Second.
Any comments?
I have none.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Blair, please.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan.
Sorry, I had to step away. I wasn't here for the reading of that.
Okay,
motion.
thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
9 yeas, 0 nays.
From the
Motion
docket,
passes.
from the docket of February 16th, 2021, I move to transfer $3,738.18 from Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to Public Works Professional Services to install a new steel guardrail at the intersection of Pond Street and West Carpenter Street.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. Any comments?
I have none.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Holmes, please.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delissio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson,
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes.
Thank you. I'm sorry. From the docket of February 16th, 2021, I move to declare the following police department office equipment as surplus and available for disposition. 6 tan metal table workstations, which are in very poor condition, and 1 brown wooden desk with 6 drawers, very poor condition.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments?
I have none.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Blair, please.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes.
And that is all the business City Property and Claims Committee has this evening, but I would like to call a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Council Holmes.
Thank you. Ordinance, Elections, and Legislative Matters Committee has no business this evening. We'll call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Let's just go to the next one. Now, that concludes our committee reports. We do not have any old business, and we do not have any new business. Any other comments before I ask for an adjournment? I entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting this evening.
Second.
Let's have a roll call vote, beginning with Councillor Holmes, please.
Ms. Holmes,
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds,
Yes.
Ms. Dolan,
Yes.
Mr. Cobus,
Yes.
Mr. Delicio,
Yes.
Mr. Waterman,
Yes.
Mr. Conti,
Yes.
Ms. DeSimone,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Vice President Jackson.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. We are adjourned.
What
Thank
time
you.
is it?
Patience.
Night all.
It's adjourned. We adjourned at
10:01.
10:01. 10:01.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.